Some time ago, I was reading an article about the state of family life today, and the author had referred to an interview that had happened many years ago by the great military leader, General MacArthur. MacArthur, in this interview, had been asked how he wanted to be remembered in history, and the general said these words: "By profession, I am a soldier, and take pride in that fact. But I am prouder, infinitely prouder, to be a father. A soldier destroys in order to build. A father only builds, never destroys. The one has the potentiality of death. The other embodies creation and life. It is my hope that my son, when I am gone, will remember me, not for the battle, but in home, repeating with him our simple daily prayer, Our Father, who art in heaven." Despite all of the great successes that General MacArthur had, he simply wanted to be remembered in history as being a good and loving father. And you that are parents know that special bond that is created between your child and yourself. You that are grandparents know that special bond that is created. We that are family members to others know that special bond. In fact, last night when I was in the airport in Toronto awaiting my flight home, I overheard a set of grandparents on FaceTime with their grandchildren, telling them that when they woke up in the morning, Grandma and Grandpa would be there. And as the conversation went on, I'm not sure who was more excited, the grandparents or the grandchildren, for the next day. There is something that is special in that bond, in that relationship that we have with young children. And certainly over the past couple of Sundays, as we have been journeying through this section of St. Mark's Gospel, as Jesus has been predicting his passion and death, as the apostles have become more and more aloof to it, arguing about who is the greatest, who is the best, Jesus, not once, not twice, but now tonight a third time, makes reference to the gift of children and how it is that these children are the ones that truly get it, truly understand it, and are truly working towards entering the kingdom of heaven. And this is at the heart of what our gospel is all about this evening. Jesus has been teaching and preaching to the crowds. Great people are pressing upon him, not only to hear him, but to receive his healing and his blessing. We hear that there are many children in the midst who not only want to come up and see and touch Jesus, but that their parents want Jesus to bless them. And how is it that these children, these little ones, are being received? We hear that the disciples try to push them aside, thinking Jesus is too busy, too important, has too many things to do than to associate with these lowly little children. But how does Jesus react to this when he sees and hears this? Our gospel tells us that Jesus becomes indignant not at the children, but at the disciples who are shooing them away. For Jesus sees in them the great nourishment that they are, the great gift that they are, and he does not want to swoosh them away, but instead he not only wants to embrace them, but he wants to raise them up and to use them as an example of how his disciples, how the crowds, how we today are called to be able to live our lives if we not only want to be his authentic disciples, but if one day we want to hope to enter into the kingdom of heaven. We hear St. Mark record these words of Jesus: "Let the children come to me, and that it is to these that the kingdom of heaven will be given." In other words, Jesus not only wants to embrace these little ones, but he raises them up as a model for all who want to be able to receive the gift of eternal life. And why does Jesus do so? Because as Jesus looks into their eyes, looks into their heart, he sees that great purity that is there. He sees that great openness that is there. He sees that great receptivity that is there. And this is what Jesus desires, not only for these little ones, but moreover for the disciples and the crowds, and still for us today. And therefore, Jesus encourages this sense of being childlike, not childish, but childlike. For it is those that are childlike that are able to draw closer to God. And in drawing closer to God, they are able to draw closer to their true and authentic selves. And why is this? When we look at the lives of little children, we see that they embody many and varied characteristics. But I suspect that as Jesus was looking upon them, he was thinking of three characteristics that these little children embodied that day and every day in their lives. As Jesus looked upon these little children, he saw first and foremost their spirit of innocence. Little children don't wear masks. Little children don't have hidden agendas. When you see a little child, you see what you get. Whatever they are thinking or feeling, for good or for bad, they simply blurt it out. There is no guise with children. They are just truly and authentically themselves. And yet so often when we look at our lives and the lives of adults, how we have lost that sense of innocence. So often in the midst of our lives, we feel that we have to play games with one another, with God, with ourselves. So often in our adult lives, we feel that we have to wear masks and pretend to be someone that we are not. And yet, if we are able to rediscover what it means to be childlike, we would recapture that sense of innocence, that sense of naivete, and to be able to have the freedom to be in right relationship with God, with others, ourselves. A second characteristic that we often see in young people living this spirit of being childlike is the great trust that children have. Children intuitively trust their parents. They trust their teachers. They trust the grown-ups that are around them without question. And as such, they believe that whatever it is that they need, whatever it is that they desire, will be taken care of. And yet, as we grow up to become adults, we lose that sense of trust. We lose that sense of being able to believe that others are going to be there for us. And we begin to develop that rugged sense of individualism, that sense of self-reliance, and that sense of simply thinking we can do it on our own. But to be the authentic disciples and witnesses of Jesus, we need to be able to grow in that spirit of trust, trusting God, trusting others, to help us to be able to walk the pathway of holiness and saintliness. And finally, when we look at little children developing in the midst of their daily lives, they not only have that spirit of innocence and trust, but we recognize that children carry little baggage with themselves. They have that innate ability to be able to live in the present moment. They are not weighed down by the things of the past. They are not fearful or frightened of what the future lies. They simply have that ability to live and to marvel in the present moment. And even when little children get in trouble, say for a squabble with their brother or sister, after their time out, what often happens? They go back to their brother and sister and continue playing as if nothing has happened. They learn what it means not only to forgive, but to forget. And yet, so often in our lives as adults, we have an inability to live in the present moment. Many of us become trapped by things of the past, or paralyzed by what the future might hold, and therefore we cannot live in the here and now. We often struggle with being able not only to be people of forgiveness, but forgetfulness in the midst of it. And as such, it traps us and prevents us from living in the here and now. And so, like these little children, we need to let go of the heavy baggage that we carry, to travel lightly and to live in the present moment. As these little children continue to develop that spirit of innocence and trust and living in the present moment, it draws them closer and closer not only to their true, unauthentic selves, but then Jesus reassures them that it will lead them towards the kingdom of heaven. And it is for this reason that Jesus raises up these little children, not for us to imitate their childishness, but their childlikeness. And yet, when we are honest with ourselves, we recognize that as simple as it is so challenging and difficult to become childlike. And this is the great criticism that we hear of Jesus at the beginning of our gospel to the Pharisees and to the disciples, that because they have lost that spirit of innocence, because they have lost that spirit of trust, because they have lost that spirit of living in the present moment, they have become hardened in heart. And as they have hardened their hearts, they have created a distance between themselves and God, others and their true self. And as a result of that, they miss the mark. We recognize that we can easily be like those Pharisees and those disciples who have missed the mark because our hearts have become hardened, because we are not in right relationship with God, with others, or ourselves. And how is it then that we recapture that childlike nature? It is by becoming more and more like these little children, being able to live in that spirit of innocence, in that spirit of trust, in that spirit of the present moment. And so this week, as we find ourselves living our daily lives, and as situations come, let us make that decision to be innocent, to be trusting, to live in the present moment. And if we are able to do so, then like those little children in the midst of Jesus, we too will then feel him embracing us in his arms, laying his hands on us and blessing us.